All right, how you doing today? Today we're taking a look at Scalar 3 and using it with virtual guitarists. I got the Native Instruments guitarist, I got the UJAM guitarist, I got the Ample Sound guitarist as well. And let's just check this out. Now there's a couple ways we're going to do this here, but I'll show you the way I like to do it, and I'll show you the other way you can do it. Now I got Scalar 3 here, open up, and I'm going to turn this part here into this. All right, that's the basic idea here. So what do we do here? Two ways we can do it. After you create your chord progression in Scalar, which I've already done, I just picked a 70s funk and soul, pre-made chord progression through the chords down my chord track. Then we go into our arrangement window here and we find different parts. So I just have the basic block chords, which is going to be what we use for the virtual guitarists. And then I created other parts too, like the melody here, this part. So our main track, we got the block chords. Now we can come in here and change the sound to the contact instrument that we're going to use for the guitarist. I like to do it in my DAW. So I just dragged the MIDI part here, the block chords into my DAW, and you just drag and drop, and then you have them here. And then you want to get rid of the bass notes and such. And you could edit this in Scalar, but I just like to edit it in my MIDI editor. And obviously what DAW you're using is going to be a little different. But for virtual guitarist, the native instrument ones, this key switches for the chords start at C3 and up. So if your chords were down here, for example, you'd have to move them up an octave so that there's no notes lower than C3, because that's where you would get the patterns that change. The keyboard layout of Electric Mint here, the chords play up here and the patterns are triggered down here. And just a correction on the Native Instruments guitarist, is actually C2 is where the chords are triggered, as you can see. Sorry about that. I have different guitarists are different places where the chords are triggered. The UJAM one that I'm using here, anything below C3 is going to be a trigger, and above C3 is playing the chords. So I just copied that, put it on my UJAM guitarist here. If you're using ample guitar, there's many ways to use ample guitar as well. You could do the pattern select, and then you do the same thing by triggering the chords, but it's a little different layout, so you have to kind of edit the MIDI. So I'm just using this as an instrument. We're just playing this. And I actually have it muted in the track because I actually didn't use this one, but I just wanted to show you. And then just for fun, I also took one of the parts that I created in Scalar 3 and used it as a bass part, which is this part here. Now there is one other thing with the contact instruments. I believe it's this one here. They also have kind of a player mode too, where you can play the notes. That's one of their melody patches, as they call it in the Native Instruments one. So that's playing this. I got some additional effects on here too. Sounds a little, unnatural as a guitar, but when you're blending in the mix, and I just did this really quickly, you could fool around with it and get some other parts and stuff. But the main part for the strumming patterns and stuff are just the block chords. So we got the now, if you want to change patterns, you got to change the key switches down here, for example. And you would write that into your MIDI data, whether you're doing it in your DAW or whether you're going back into Scalar 3, because you could edit the MIDI in Scalar 3 as well. Just click on your blobs there, or whatever, blobs, your MIDI track there, and you could write the notes in and such, if you're gonna do it that way. Again, I like doing it in the DAW, just because that's the way I'm used to working. But if you're using the standalone version of Scalar 3, then you do it that way. And then we have acoustic guitar here. Again, just playing from the block chords. Now, the one thing about the UJAM instrument, which is really cool, I have this in instrument mode. Now this one works differently than the native instrument ones. And basically, if you watch down on they call it the fretboard down here, it's playing the chords, but there's no sound coming from here. Because in instrument mode, you play the notes down here. And we have kind of like the 6 strings of guitar. We have what would be the E string, A string, and we get some strums. And we get different key switches for dampening and stuff. And we can have the dampening here as well. And some other things. So what we can do is my MIDI data is playing the chords, and I'm just going to jam on top of the track like so. And you can do it that way and record your melodies on top. Of course, you could write those notes in as well on your MIDI data down here, which would be in this area. And then I got like an arpeggiator part here, which would sound like this. And so on and so forth. Of course, you can make that whatever you want. I'm just doing this quickly for the demo. And again, we're just triggering the chords on the top part here, and then we're triggering the notes, which change with the chords on the lower part here. So it takes some time to get used to your different virtual guitars. I'm not sure which ones you have and which ones you're familiar with, but that's how that works. And you know, that's a pretty cool method as well with the UJAM ones. And then the native instrument ones, when you have them in melody mode, this we would just play without triggering the chords. But I already have a part in here for that. So there you go. So I hope this is helpful. I know I spent most of my time after the fact of using Scalar 3, but just for a recap, if you're new to Scalar 3, you can go in here and pick your tracks like this felt piano. You could choose a virtual instrument, so you could load up the contact instrument player or your UJAM ones or whatever you got, or the Ample Sound one here, and load it into Scalar. Again, then you would use the MIDI data in here, and you could export it to your DAW or just play it in here. I like doing it the way where I just drag the chords and the parts over to my DAW. Anyways, I hope this is helpful, not too confusing. It's kind of all over the place. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I have a bunch of other videos on my channel about virtual guitarists and stuff like that, and music production and all kinds of stuff. So please do subscribe as well. Check out the other videos floating around the screen here. If you're watching on YouTube, other platforms, check the post. There'll be more details down there. That is all for now. I will talk to you soon.